Hi, this is Christopher Ingram with the Heartbeat of Tampa Bay, and many of you know that I am firmly opposed to the use of taxpayer dollars to fund a baseball stadium for the Tampa Bay Rays, a team owned by very wealthy individuals that are out to make a buck, a profit. There is nothing wrong with that. I am a true capitalist. However, I am extremely opposed to taxpayer subsidies for billionaires to run their for-profit company in a deal that is not fair to taxpayers. If the Tampa Bay Rays really want to do a deal that's a partnership with the community and they're asking us to spend taxpayer dollars, then the Rays should spend, or should share rather, in equally proportional dollars the profits of their for-profit corporation over in perpetuity, as long as taxpayers are on the hook for said baseball stadium. I'm pleased to announce and welcome to the show today Joshua Wostal, who is a Hillsborough County Commissioner, whom I would venture to say it's fair to say has been an open critic of this whole process and the proposal. Joshua, Commissioner, I hope that I didn't represent how I see you, but please tell us what's your view on this, and let's get into some of the details of this stadium proposal.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty fair assessment. I mean, I was open-minded to the idea when it was originally pitched because we were promised that it would only be user fees such as special taxing districts, hotel fees, tourist development, hotel fees, etc. But then it turns out that the entire time they've known that that was never going to be the reality. And now the majority of what they want is very little user fees, and a majority of your local infrastructure taxes, your emergency catastrophic funds, your property taxes are now on the table. I mean, what's happening now is not only a gross misrepresentation of what was advertised in February. I mean, it's not even the same deal. It's quite offensive, frankly.
Well, I'm glad you share that view. We agree on that 100%. And, you know, I just think that the whole notion that we're going to take taxpayer dollars for this for-profit company, hand them this pot of gold and say, go have at it, do what you want. Yeah, you get the concession fees, you get the naming rights, all these things that are so much in favor of the Rays, because the proposal, as I see it, has been written by the Rays, not in an equal partnership with Hillsborough County and the city of Tampa. And for that reason alone, we should say no. I can come up with about 6 or 7 other really good reasons, but you touched on something that I think is one of the most salient points, and that is we're going to use these funds to build this stadium for billionaires that's otherwise set aside for, like you said, catastrophic emergencies, when we have a hurricane, those types of things, stormwater infrastructure. Our roads in the city of Tampa and Hillsborough County are terrible. I would go so far as to say, having lived in the city for 21 years, the roads in the city of Tampa proper are like a third world country. It is asinine for us to spend taxpayer money that are dedicated for road improvement and other projects that really benefit the needs of the citizens, as opposed to the wants that then we would turn around and build a $2 billion stadium. Commissioner, is there any case that you see could come forward where we use CIT funds and property taxes to support the building of a $2 billion stadium for the Tampa Bay Rays?
I just can't imagine 4 of my colleagues, the majority, saying yes to using a penny of property taxes, much less the CIT funds, which, for your audience benefit, there is very clear record in 2024 when we renewed the CIT of all 7 county commissioners saying very clearly that these funds would not be eligible to be used on a new professional sports stadium. They're trying to use legal language to do a workaround on that. I'm quite confident that if it moves forward with CIT, we will immediately be sued by very reputable people that have successfully sued the county over the past 2 decades over similar tax deals. Yeah. There's a wide variety. I want to shut down a couple of the misrepresentations that the Rays and others continue to repeat. This is not $1 billion of tax funds like keeps being said. The Rays need 100% of the taxpayers' money first before their equity. which is not typical for normal commercial deals. In normal commercial deals, you come with your own equity first and then the bank comes later. They want a reversal on that, which means that we have to bond all of this money, which is just like taking a mortgage. I'll simplify it. And the mortgage for the tenure of this loan would easily be $400 million more of tax annual tax bills that we have to pay, interest that we have to pay. So we're at 1.4 billion using round numbers, that alone. Then when you start including all of the other kick-ins that the state's going to have to provide, you're very easily encroaching about $2 billion burden on just the taxpayer side. Okay, so that's a very important one. I also want to clear up all of this. Oh, but the property tax revenue generation is going to be amazing for the community. Drew Park has suffered so much. Well, in their own work draft memorandum of understanding that they provided, I want to be clear, there was no understanding. The county administrators asked them not to send it. This was a memorandum of demands, nothing more, nothing less. There is a clause in there that redirects 85% of all new property tax growth in the Drew Park CRA back into a capital expenditure fund that the Rays control to enhance, quote, their own development and the stadium. Not just the stadium. They want it to enhance their 100-acre free land development deal that was given to them. I want to be very clear about those points.
Well, that is astonishing. And I think, as you noted, these are misrepresentations at best and flat out lies, at least. And it's appalling. What perplexes me is it seems like there are people kind of like myself and like you who are people who want to be good fiscal stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. And then there are people who are just huge baseball fans that are in favor of anything. They don't seem to care about stormwater runoff. They don't care about potholes. They don't care about building libraries and fire stations. They just want baseball in Tampa. It seems nonsensical to me. Do you see there being any middle ground of people in this argument?
No, I mean, you know, I've actually in the private sector negotiated some pretty large deals, not one as large as this, but typically you can go into it and know right away, hey, is there a middle ground, or are we so far apart that there's no way to bridge that gap? And I believe that it's the latter. I mean, you continue to say potholes, and I don't know if you saw, I was kind of flabbergasted that the new chairman and majority owner of the Rays reshared one of their followers. Like you said, the Rays fans will do whatever it takes, no matter at what cost to everybody else, it seems, which is really concerning. But he was literally celebrating one of the fans, calling the rest of us that are just trying to get a fair deal pothole monitoring troglodytes. I mean, it was quite offensive. He should take it down and apologize to everybody. Maybe he shared that on accident, but I mean, it's real concerns. It's multiple decades of failed infrastructure maintenance by the elected officials, and we put forward a funding mechanism to try and have good faith to catch that up. And now you might not even realize that we're not even collecting that CIT yet until December the 1st of this year. The original CIT doesn't expire. So before we've even started collecting a penny of that renewal, we're already trying to railroad the taxpayers and change what we promised them we'd spend it on.
And hand it out to billionaires.
Yeah.
So walk us through what the timeline is of where we stand this week of May 11th and moving forward over the course of the next couple of weeks. Because the Rays, of course, they've tried to dictate the whole situation in terms of the timeline. Walk us through where we are now to where they've said they want or need to be by the middle of June.
They said their deadline forever was June the 1st, hard cutoff June the 1st. Our last board meeting is May the 20th. The draft agenda just came out on Friday for this next Wednesday, May the 20th board meeting. There's no raise item on there. That does not mean that a commissioner can't add that item even the day before the meeting starts and ask for it to be put back on there. So everybody should not be confused that we're not voting on the 20th. There's a very real chance that that may still happen. To my understanding, there's still no agreement. There's still serious material deficiencies that have not been provided to the county for us to properly analyze the deal. I mean, if you looked at the AECOM analysis that was provided to review their internal numbers, one of the things that AECOM said was that, quote, detailed site plans for the stadium district were not provided, leading AECOM to make significant assumptions on the intensity of development. So even the analysis of the economic statement we did, the company themselves said, hey, these are all even more fake numbers than they would usually be because we don't have any of the information that we need. So I really don't know how it'd be pulling a rabbit out of the hat that they say, hey, good news, we don't need CIT, we don't need your property taxes, we don't need your Hurricane Milton disaster recovery funds. If people didn't know that, that's one of the line items that they asked for people that had their lives ruined by Hurricane Milton. We haven't even got to fix their homes yet. They want to redirect 30 million of that. That's a lot of homes to fixing their stormwater issues. So now, though, I did see the reporting is that allegedly the deadline was fake, like we were saying, and it was more of a soft target, but they need to have it happen soon after. I mean, I don't even know what's happening anymore.
Well, we all know, I mean, if you've ever been in sales, you want to throw out the biggest pot of whatever you're selling to try to get the person to buy, the most expensive item, and you're going to try to dictate the terms, and that's clearly what's going on here. Thankfully, we have some good public stewards like yourself who are questioning and calling out these things. We've got other folks who are just hell-bent and have been for 20 plus years, and I'm talking about Hillsborough County Commissioner Ken Hagan, who is absolutely doing the wrong thing in terms of being a good steward with fiscal responsibility for Hillsborough County taxpayer dollars. I'm ashamed and appalled of his behavior and what he's doing on this. He's such a big sports nut. I think he would sell his own mother for a Rays baseball stadium. Do you, Commissioner Wostal, see any case in which you could be in favor of and vote yes at whatever level to keep the Rays in or get them in Hillsborough County?
I think that if the stadium price was closer to, I don't know, that the taxpayer burden was $350 million, and we could accomplish that through the appropriate tourist development hotel fees, the CDD fees that they wanted, their hotel fees. And the other biggest thing for me is that the taxpayers don't understand. They also want us to own this stadium on the grounds that the other stadiums are owned by us. Well, that abates the whole stadium site from a property taxes if the county owns the site. They need to be required to own the stadium and pay the property taxes. That's our benefit for you being here in Hillsborough County, and you're creating impacts on our local first responders. So if they owned the stadium and they dropped the number massively of our share to where we had no long-term liabilities and it was just a reimbursement basis off of tourist development fees. I made that offer publicly, by the way, if you didn't catch that, and they declined it. They declined $738 million of reimbursement over a 35-year period of the tourist development 6th cent hotel fee. They declined that number, even though it's almost exactly what they're asking for. Imagine going to someone, they offer you the exact number that you want, and you still say no because it's not on your terms. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't make sense. And again, they're just trying to dictate on their terms. And, my dad was a lawyer, and he used to tell me, he said, Chris, a good contract is a fair contract is fair to both sides. A good contract is fair to both sides. And this is clearly a very one-sided deal. Commissioner, I want to throw out another point. You see a lot of these economic impact studies that say, a stadium and a professional sports team are going to add X number of tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars over the years, blah, blah, blah. Every one of those studies that I've ever read has been paid for by a pro-stadium interest, and they neglect to take into account things like, well, if there wasn't a football stadium and there wasn't a team for fans to go spend their money on watching games on Sunday, those people would spend their money on other things. We have plenty of other great things to spend our money on here in the Tampa Bay region with all the outdoor activities, the arts, other sports and whatnot. Do you see the economic benefit of having a sports team the same way that these pro sports team, let the taxpayers fund these monstrosities, or is it all a big ruse?
Come on, man. You know what? Somebody tried to use Grok to dunk on me on social media, and then Grok immediately responded and was like, no, actually, it's a wide consensus that these stadiums do not actually repay for a lot of the reasons you said. The number one attraction for the Tampa Bay region is the water, right? Yeah. Just be very clear about that. Absolutely. That's why Pinellas County has over 3 times the amount of tourist development fees, even though they have the Rays who have abysmal attendance, because people aren't going there for the sports. They're going there for the water. That is our number one asset in Hillsborough County. And by the way, tourist development taxes could be used to protect that number one asset, and they're not, but that's besides the point. I believe that there might be one unicorn in the whole history of funding these stadiums that, yes, you could point to and say, hey, that was worthwhile. But we're doing great with the Bucks, and we're doing great with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and we already own those assets and have long-term commitments to them. The study also said, though, that even if we do this for the Rays, they will still be in, after the excitement of their new stadium, they will only be in the bottom third of attendance in the MLB. So the economic impact analysis are just a way for rich people to try and convince lower middle class people that you should give me your money. I'll handle your money better for you. That's exactly what they are designed to do.
Absolutely. So I think it's safe to assume, but I want to put words in your mouth, but I'm gathering you would be okay if we can't come to a consensus that is a fair agreement to the taxpayers of Hillsborough County and the city of Tampa, that the Rays might pack up their bags and their plans to come to Hillsborough and go to Orlando or something. You okay with that?
Yeah, well, look, Hillsborough County already doesn't have the Rays, so right. We're not the commissioners that are going to lose the Rays. We don't have them. You're choosing to leave, and we also didn't ask you to come. You approached us with all of your needs. So, I know the commission didn't send you a letter and say, hey, please consider us. So I believe that we have a lot of strong fans for the Lightning and the Bucks. They're going to continue to support those sports teams in that area. I believe that one of the games in Steinbrenner Field, which is on ground zero of the Rays last season, only had 7,400 people in attendance on one of those games, and that you would see slightly better numbers if it was in some big $2.5 billion stadium. So,
well, one thing that has been overlooked in this whole proposal is that is a terrible area to put a baseball stadium that is, in theory, their hopes would have tens of thousands of fans at those games every single time that there's a home game, and they play a lot of times in the evenings. People would be showing up to the stadium at rush hour, making Dale Mabry, the surrounding areas, the 275, I-4, even worse of a traffic nightmare than it is. What are your thoughts on that, Commissioner?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that was highlighted in not my words, the AECOM's words, which was that they said that there would be parking garages on site, but we were not able to determine the scale. Well, I know for a fact that they do not intend to handle parking on site, that they intend to try and use the field, the south field of the Bucs Stadium, which leaves all of those people having to cross the street, which is why they also want FDOT to have to pay for a very expensive crosswalk over Del Mabry Highway. I just want to be clear about that. It would exacerbate issues far beyond. They started telling people that they were going to get a train stop in front of the There's never going to be a train on Del Mabry. I want to be very clear about that. It will never fiscally make sense.
Well, we're seeing what's going on in Brightline over on the East Coast right now. They can't pay their bills, and they wanted to bring Brightline to Tampa to be another big boondoggle. The taxpayers bailing them out again and again. That's for another episode of Heartbeat of Tampa Bay. Commissioner Josh Wostal, I appreciate you being here. I really appreciate your hard work, your forthrightness, your being outspoken about this, and just asking for what everyone on that commission should be asking for, which is a good deal that's fair to taxpayers, and this one clearly is not. Do you have any parting words that you want to share with our viewers?
No, people need to be engaged and be mindful. They continue to advertise that they allegedly have the vote. So even if the item isn't on May the 20th, you should be there. They're literally paying for advertisements to generate support against you. So if you don't want your taxes to go to this, you should show up and voice those opinions on May the 20th board meeting.
Very well said. Commissioner Josh Wostal, we appreciate you being here today on Heartbeat of Tampa Bay, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.